Hello and welcome to Mediumship Matters with me, Hannah McIntyre. And today I am joined by yet another incredible special guest, Charlie Kelly. Now, I've been watching Charlie from afar on his YouTube videos, and I was very excited when he agreed to come and share his knowledge with us, because you say it like it is, don't you, Charlie?
I like to think so.
Yeah, you really do. And I love it. I love to watch it. So thanks for joining us today. How did you get involved in all of this?
In mediumship,
Yeah.
it was actually a loss of a family member. So I lost my sister at a young age, and it was more of a hoping that there's something else. And then that was a really long journey. I suppose that must have been, I don't know, about 10 years before I started to sort of have a real firm idea that there was something behind the idea of a spirit world. So that kind of led me on to different. It comes in different facets, really, because the journey was: is there a God? And why have they taken my sister?
Yeah.
And then there was different facets of my life, like I was in trouble because of that. I kind of went off the rails a little bit. And then I needed kind of a discipline about my mind and myself, my thoughts, and, that kind of stuff. So I took up like a couple of martial arts, which taught me energy. And then the marrying up of the energy and this spiritual idea kind of unfolded what we in the UK call like a clairvoyance.
Wow.
Although I think the label's wrong for clairvoyance, but
Oh God, right. 50 questions just from
yeah.
that. Okay. First of all, what's wrong with the label clairvoyance?
It's only seeing. A mediumship is a sensory experience. It's an essence. It's an energy. The mind is surrendered to a communicator, which means they have the entire use of everything within my mind. But we label it as an image. Just through clairvoyance, and a clairvoyant will stand up and say, and I feel and you're like, but it's clairvoyance, it's seeing. So I'm not really comfortable with the title of clairvoyance. I think it's more of a mental process. Mental mediumship would be more suited. But there's misconceptions in the general public anyway, isn't there, between a psychic and a medium, and the labels marrying up. And then, I mean, we could be here for hours discussing grey areas, etc.
Well, we could. I mean, I don't like any of the clairs because I think they just become a limit.
Yeah, well, I'm actually running a class later on today that's I think it's titled something Embracing the Spark. And what I mean by that is that initially you have an idea that a man is joining you, or a lady is joining you, whatever the way is. It's an idea. So that sparks in the mind, and then the process beyond that is convincing you to speak.
Yes.
So you now see the man, then you'll say, I have a man. If you have that idea and then you feel a man, then you'll speak. So now I feel a man. So that process there, from beyond the idea that has formed within your mind, that from that moment onwards is convincing the medium that you have that, because you've already had the idea. And so that's where I would put a tremendous amount of thoughts to your faith and to your surrender in that idea. For every fraction of a second that you're holding that, your brain is embellishing, it's distorting it, it's creating an environment for you to grow confident enough to say, I have a man.
I love it. Oh my goodness. Right. So I still want to hold on to my initial question. So you weren't what some would call a natural medium. You weren't playing with spirit children when you grew up. This is something that found its way to you through your sad loss.
Yeah, I think so. I'm a little bit fed up with all the stories of knights in shining armor and angels and stuff like that. I'm a little bit fed up with it, because it for me, I'm not offering offense. I mean, if people,
oh no, I wasn't
offense,
either.
yeah,
I didn't find it till I was 30, so you're fine.
So it's kind of like there's a little bit too much of me being special. There's a little bit too much of that, and I'm just a normal guy. And I had an idea. I had questions, and I went and looked for it, and therefore I found it. So I was 30, 31, I think, when I embarked on that journey. I see it very much like any of us look out of our window. You know, there is wonders out there, you know, whether it be the birds and the bees and the butterflies, and spring is forming. But it's a little bit drizzly and a little bit rainy here today, and we can focus on like something that's a little bit uncomfortable, makes you feel a bit down, or you can focus on the bird song. It's perception, and I think once you rewire the brain for the perception of what you're looking for, then the ability is there for everyone to sort of.
That was my next question. Do you believe it's available to everyone?
Yeah, I think it's a birthright. I think it's just suppression. You know, it would terrify a parent of a child saying that they can see or they're aware of. And if the parent is unaware of that, they'll silence the mind, won't they? It's not there, nothing there.
Yeah.
Then it just begins around 5, I suppose, 5, 6, 7. That element of suppression, of cultivating a little mini version of themselves through the education and the culture that they live in. So
absolutely. I always say, I think one of the biggest things that we do as teachers is undoing everything that's been done to get back to a natural state. The
best student is one that has had no teaching. If they've had no teaching, then if I say we're going to go and get, you know, A, B, and C from a communicator, then they don't have an idea that that's not possible or that's hard. They just go and do it.
They just do it.
So they're the best kind of student, like just fresh. And so there's a massive progression very quickly in their mediumship skill set. That doesn't mean they're a good person or their integrity is good or their ethics are good. That doesn't mean that. It just means they've acquired a skill set that can communicate.
Now, I saw a video on, I can't remember whether it was your YouTube or your Facebook page about integrity or mediumship. And I was feeling that's something you're quite passionate about. Talk to us about that.
It's just, I've seen a lot of mediums. I don't go so much now to watch. I used to watch. The power of observation, I thought, was an incredible tool in my own development. What I want to do and what I want to be, how I want to be perceived, and, you know, that, like, demonstrating terminology, you know, that kind of thing on my own stage. So observation was really good, and I would observe mediums talking ever so spiritually on a platform and addressing from their soapbox, talking down to the congregation that's in front of them, and then see the antics that go on in the background. And you're kind of like, well, what was that 20-minute address about? You know, like you're literally doing everything that you've just spoke about in the wrong terms. So a lot of it was, you know, personal experience. I've been on the end of that kind of stuff, and so it just because they talk well or they dress well or they present well, they've got good showmanship, you know, doesn't mean their integrity is in place or their ethical code is not manipulating or narcissistic in any way. So
for sure, I've learned that to my detriment a few times. I think I've learned it now, but I would never say never, because you never know, do you? And so just to go back to your initial thing, you were questioning when you started all of this, is there a God? What's all this grief about? What's your answer today? Because I know answers evolve. What would you say to that today?
I think and I fully agree that it constantly evolves. I think you've got to have a philosophy that is not trapped by parameters. It's got to have room to grow, because you don't know everything at year 1 or year 2, do you? So and so it has to be able to grow. I think my philosophy's been there throughout, that I don't see God as a biblical individual in that sense. I do think you are an expression of God. I'm an expression of God, and, you know, the animals and the plants and the planet is all an expression of God. I just think it's that that energy source that cannot be destroyed as an essence form in absolutely everything, whether it be my desk in front of me or you opposite me. It's just a product of that essence that's there. So it's not a person for me.
I just asked purely because someone sent in a listener question that I answered weirdly
mm,
half an hour before we met up online.
mm, yeah,
So I
yeah,
was like, I wonder what you were going to say, because I sort of squidged my way through it saying,
yeah,
I feel like we are the universe experiencing itself in individual form, but I
yeah.
just wondered where you were going to go with it. So I love it. So you started with your martial arts and then it developed into mediumship. And then did you actively seek out teachers, workshops, or how did you
I
expand?
did initially. I thought to myself, I'm from a town called Harlow in the Essex County. It was known for its violence when I was growing up. It was a rough place, you know. And I'm not sure the figures are still good there from Harlow, you know. So so the mechanism behind the martial arts was really for a defense. It was, if I got attacked, like can I do that?
Mm-hmm.
In amongst that, you kind of make friends, don't you? You make friends within the martial art, and you know that kind of stuff. And so I was curious, like, I googled biggest mistake you can make when something's not right inside your head. You know, is there a God? Is there ghosts? Is there an afterlife? Is there the worst Google search you can have, I think? And
Yeah,
it just
for
fills you
sure.
with absolute horror. That I had located what I didn't know at the time was a spiritual church. So I thought I'd make my way, dressed very similar as I am today, on your podcast, and I got escorted out.
Oh my God, I
Like,
didn't expect it to end like that. Oh my gosh.
yeah, you're in the wrong room. Um, and I was like, oh, okay, so I've just read all the principles that you're not judgmental, and here you are judging me. And they saw me out, yeah. So so I left it another 6 months before I went back. And I went back again, but I was a bit more strong-minded now. You know, I've got 6 months of martial arts under my belt. No one's going to be throwing me out this time.
Yeah.
And I'll stand firm in why I'm here. To which then the medium was absolutely horrific and painted a picture to the audience that suggested I was some criminal, you know, like
Oh my gosh.
gangland, like mobster, in the wrong building in front of everyone. It was absolutely mortifying. I'd never been so embarrassed in my life. So
I
um,
can't believe that through all of that, you managed to stick to the path and not just go, stuff this, I'm
yeah,
out.
and walk away. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I kind of left it, and this maybe is a bit strange. This bit. I mean, with my knowledge now and my understanding now, I don't know why the lady done it, but she done it. And I was walking through a local Tesco car park in Harlow. I was on a lunch break at a job I had, and I was off to get a sandwich or something like that. And a woman approached me and she said, "Oh, you have the light," or something like that. I don't know. It was some kind of terminology like that. Um, you'll have to join a circle, or a circle's looking for you right now. And I was like, what on earth is she banging on
Yeah.
about? And to me, a circle was a shape. I didn't know what it meant by,
Yeah.
you
Always
know,
a useful message. Yeah.
yeah. So I was kind of like, what on earth was that? And then later on down the line, maybe a week or so later, someone approached me and said, "You're into that spiritual stuff," and I was like, "Yeah," you know, kind of in the closet with it, really, because of the life and the place and what have you. And she said, "Oh, we're running a circle in the next town. Why don't you pop along?"
Oh
And I
my
was like, "Do you know
gosh.
what? I actually will," because I had this weird woman come up to me in a car park, and um, so off I went. Off I went to this circle, and it was I loved it. I loved it at the time. I think too many people are in a rush right now. Like, they
Mm-hmm.
want a shortcut to mediumship, and it's not
Mm-hmm.
really. There's not a shortcut. So there was weird stuff. I mean, they done weird things, and they sat and spoke and done, like, and I saw that very early on, but I enjoyed the time. I enjoyed the space, or the comfort of not worrying or fighting, or, you know, in
Yeah.
martial arts, or it was just a nice time for me. To which the tutor at the time offered the regular circle goers to stand on the platform that was available in this spiritual church where this circle was being held. And then I said, oh, do you know what? I'll give this a go, like, because I'm really aware of a lady. And then I rattled off the, the typical format that you see around mediumship, age, relation, passing, that
The
sort of stuff.
checklist.
Kind of a very firm checklist.
Yeah.
And I rattled off a few things, to which a circle member took immediately. And I was like, oh, I reckon I can do this, I reckon it, like, so I just started attending circle. I outgrew it quite quickly. I think it was fair to say. Then I wanted testing, because it was kind of like, if I'm gonna do it, then I don't want to be half-hearted at it. I don't want to be a crazy person. I don't want to be, I don't want people bringing cups or crystal balls, or
Yeah.
If I'm going to do it, then I need to be relatable, but I need to understand the subject. So I need someone that can really pull me apart and really test my capabilities at that point. So and then that started a new kind of development search in my own development from there. Yeah. So.
Oh my goodness, I love it. What a story.
Yeah.
So here's the question for you. To a certain extent, it came quite naturally to you then, I would say. If you just stood on a platform and went, this is what I'm getting, and someone went, yes.
I think the problem today that I see hundreds and hundreds of students every year, hundreds of them, possibly thousands of them, actually, thinking about the numbers that I'm doing at
The
the
number
minute.
of things you do, yeah, for sure.
And I think the biggest problem I constantly see is that no one draws a line. So after doing 5 or 6 circles, and every time I'm getting it right, or I'm not saying like pinpoint accurate, I'm saying there was a lot of information and a lot of it seems to be right, that I just drew a line under it and thought, you know what, I'm going to go with it, rather than, is it me? I don't know if it's me. I don't know. So there was a very definitive line of, when I cross the threshold of this building, my mind is not my own anymore. I've lent it out. And when I leave that building, then it's mine again. And the ideas are crazy. That's okay. But I need that line.
Yeah.
So I just started developing from that. That's what I started to do. Was this development was, I'm going to give it everything, but I'm going to have a little bit of faith in me. I'm going to have a little bit of trust in me. And if I surrender my mind, it tends to be right. If I hold it for any length of time, I mess it up. So I want the latter. I want it to be good. I want to be successful. I want to get this communication across successfully and accurately. And everything that stops me from doing that is me. Then I need the discipline to stop doing that. And so I did that really early on, just really early on, rather than trying to have the control within all of that, and trying to develop because people say surrender, but no one's surrendering, no one's in service of. It's under condition. Give me your age or I won't say it. Give me your death or I won't speak. Give me this, give me that, do this, do that. And they're not dancing monkeys. The mind is to be surrendered. And so if I actually surrender my mind, then I was actually accurate. And I just learned that really early on. So I don't think it's natural. I just think I implemented a discipline that meant I knew I was going to mess it up. Don't mess it up. Don't get involved. Stay out of the way. And I just implemented that as a foundational part of my development.
Amazing. And how did that sit? Because I've sat in a few circles. I've seen, how did that sit with the other people in the group? Because I've had people say things like, well, you can't possibly do it, you haven't been developing enough, or this kind of thing.
I remember being asked on a couple of occasions to do this or go get that and and I wasn't really a good circle person, in fairness to there weren't many that I kind of stuck around in, because I would be that person that says, I'll do it, I've got no problems doing it, but show me first what you're asking me to do, then I'll go do it. So I had a mark or a measure for what it was that they were asking me to do. There weren't many, I've made friends and I've lost friends along the way. I think I've challenged maybe 3 tutors and that have delivered.
Hmm.
That was Lynn Probert.
Oh, yeah, I've been taught by Lynn Probert.
Yeah, so and she delivered. She would say no problem, and then she would demonstrate it. Tim Abbott, he would demonstrate it to a very high standard, and Sheila French, and she would deliver it to a high standard when challenged.
Yeah.
So they would give you the exercise, but then demonstrate the exercise when challenged to demonstrate it, and they would do it. Any others? Kind of like you're not really the student we want here. We need you gone. So
I
you'd be
had heard
thrown
that
out.
story about you, funnily enough,
Mm.
that you had challenged somebody who wasn't able to deliver a phone number, I believe. I don't know if it's
Mm.
been changed through Chinese whispers over time, but that was the one that I heard.
Yeah, but then I went and got it.
Yeah, I
I
heard
went and
that
did it.
too.
Yeah. So it's like don't ask me to do it when you can't do it, which I
Yeah.
think is important as a teacher or a tutor, in giving them a measure, giving them a mark, giving them a something to work towards.
Mhm.
There's too many teachers. There's too many,
Mm.
and I don't know your story or anyone else's story really, but I create a lot of inspirational lessons. I will quickly run the exercise in my head. Is this workable? Yes. Then we'll run with it. Then people steal that exercise. They steal it, but they don't know why you're doing it.
Hmm.
I do know why I'm doing it. I've deliberately put um, a trip hazard in there. Are you finding a trip hazard? And then we'll discuss it. And now you're mechanically able to get through what it is that you're trying to achieve. So again, mechanics of mediumship are they're actually really easy. They're really simple. The spirituality that comes with mechanics is very different, and the ethics and the integrity are another angle. It's more than just that skill set of being able to get something.
For sure. For sure. So that kind of leads me to my next question, actually, is in your opinion, what do you think makes great mediumship?
Mindset. So it's I accept that there's without it sounding bipolar or schizophrenic, I accept there's two versions of me. There's one that's allowed to make mistakes on a daily basis, and that's Charlie, where I need my own life experience and my ups and my downs and that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
But it's unacceptable to take those things into mediumship,
Mhm.
because it definitely influences what's about to take place for the client, and that's unfair for the service of a communicator for their client. If I've had a bad day and I've brought it into the read, if I'm
Mhm.
having a good day and I'm missing bits because I'm overexcited or whatever. So it's a mindset of my medium version of me has to be as close as to the perfect idea of communication that I have as it
Mhm.
possibly can be, through mechanics and disciplines and understanding of me, myself, and I, and them, and the client. And there's way too much teaching at the moment, where in a communication triangle of a communicator, then the client, then the medium.
Mhm.
There's too much emphasis on the medium and the communicator, and it's like a communication triangle. Without the client, there is no reason for the communication. So people are kind of cutting off the client. They're not even looking at the client. They're sitting there with their eyes shut, or they're not doing anything with the client. And it's almost like that third wheel scenario. Two of them are having this wonderful conversation, but leaving someone out. I think the client feels that.
Yeah.
That
It's just making me laugh because I've been talking about that. So it's just making me laugh.
and
Good.
it's super important that they're part of it. It's got to be
Yeah.
this balance between them, their relationship, the communicator and the client, where the mind of the client is, because it'll be with them, then I'm relaying what they're asking me to say, which is making them think of the client, the communicator even more. And it just brings this beautiful ebb and flow, whether it be on a stage or in a private one-to-one. Then it would that balance has to be kept. If not, the failing will be the breakdown in relationship between me and the client, not the communication. It will fail between me and the client because I have wrecked the relationship there. Well, I think people kind of like, they get their mediumship and it'll be like, this is my mediumship and this is what I'm offering you.
Yeah.
But you are different to the last person I spoke to, and the next one that's coming, and the next one after that. You're all different. Every single one of you are different. Your worldly problems are different. The things you worry about are different. The person you are is completely different. Your ethics, your integrity, your culture, everything is different. So for me to offer this one-dimensional style of format, age, relationship, passing condition, is not going to work 10 times out of 10. So I need a toolbox. I need to understand, who is this client and what are they about? What do I need to do here? And then I grab the tools I need from my development, and I issue what I need as my my mediumship, and the client should leave better, you know, in what's gone on. And there's too much of, this is me, this is how I do it, when it's not about you, it's about the client.
Absolutely.
If I went into the doctor's for a headache and he just, try this tablet, then I've broke my leg, try this tablet, and it's the same tablet.
Yeah.
You know, I've got severe anxiety, try this tablet. You know, it's like, you'd stop going to the doctor.
You would. So what about in because you're obviously evidential mediumship all the way. Do you believe that there's any space for spirit guides during a reading? Do you believe, because
I don't like it in a read. I don't like it. It's not evidential in that sense. With that being said, someone that's got an element of development under their belt, if I was working for you and there was a level of assessment, where am I going, what am I doing, I'm a little bit lost, I think there would be room there. It wouldn't go under the banner of evidential mediumship. It would have to go under the banner of an assessment, a spiritual assessment, but not in an evidential
agreed read. I just wondered, I'm just being nosy, it's interesting to know. So tell us some of your experiences with the spirit world, because I'm sure they must have blown your mind at times. I
think the first one that springs to mind is actually off the back of your question with spirit guides. I went to a demonstration, and the medium on that evening kept referring to the Chinese man that was stood beside me. So this was just, if you remember earlier on in the podcast, I was saying I hadn't done development, I was searching. And now they keep giving me this Chinese man. That when it comes to development, there was this woman that just kept turning up, but I kept pushing her away, like, where's the Chinese man? You know, like, I'm looking for this Chinese man. A medium has told me. So I'm pushing this woman away for 6 months. And then finally the penny dropped, and I was like, oh my God, you are the guide, and I'm pushing you away. And I felt terrible for a few weeks. And that would be one significant point, because I felt like I was being told off. I wasn't, but I felt like I was being told off. My favorite one would have to be, I received, I'm really into the pioneers of mediumship. I'm really into that. It was, I can't remember the year now, but it was maybe around 2014, 2015. I was making my way through a hallway, and right beside me, like where the board was the front door in this hallway, and I heard the letterbox go. And so rather than pick it up off the floor, I opened the door to see who it was, because it was a funny hour or something like that. I remember trying to catch who posted it, and there was no one there. And it was a very straight road, you know, and I looked up and I looked down and there was no one there. And I thought, wow, how strange is that? That is unbelievable. So anyway, I kind of like, oh well, I've gone in, I've picked up this envelope, and it just had my name on it. There was no address, there was no stamp, there was nothing, and I was like, this day's just getting weirder. What on earth's going on here? You know, it still makes me laugh, like thinking about it today. And I opened this envelope, and it was a signed first edition of Red Cloud Speaks by Estelle Roberts, which I don't know if you know the value of that book, but
I don't know the monetary value of it, but I can imagine the value of it.
So it was like, oh my God. So it was like signed first. It looked brand new. And yet you opened it and it's like 1938 or something like that, you know. And I was like, oh my God. It was my birthday. So it was like this crazy gift. So I mean, we'll let the
Did you ever find out where it came from?
No idea.
Oh my God, that's magic.
So and then I remember sitting. I used to spend a tremendous amount of time sitting with the lady that I was talking about, which slowly developed into like a physical kind of time of the week, like physical mediumship, the development with trumpets and things like that, you know.
Cool.
And trance work, so spoken trance. I'd have one sitter. I wasn't comfortable doing it in front of anyone else. And I'd done that for maybe 3 years. So every week for 3 years, I was really, really focused on getting that dialed in. And they told me Christmas was approaching and not to forget about the present under the tree. And I was like, okay, whatever that means, you know. My little girl, she was tiny at the time. She must have been, I don't know, 7, 8, something like that. And she had her presents and what have you, and she had like emptied under the tree. And I was sitting there like picking up the wrappers, throwing them in like the rubbish bag to recycle all the boxes and that kind of stuff. You know, it was quite funny. And she went, "Oh, don't forget your present." And I said to her, "What do you mean, my present? Like under the tree?" And she went, "Oh, the man told me. The man told me don't forget your present." And so I just like, "Oh, okay. No problem. Go get it then." And she went and pulled a bauble off the Christmas tree. It was a sealed bauble, sealed.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, okay, thanks." And she went, "No, it's inside." And I was like, what do you mean it's inside? And I shook it. And there was something inside this bauble. So I broke the bauble, and it was a brand new silver sixpence from, I've got it framed up the back here somewhere, like from many years ago, but it looked brand new, brand spanking new.
Wow.
And she never mentioned the man again. She never. Now I work really closely with a man with the physical stuff, so I assume he just spoke to her to say. But I framed that immediately. That was something that I'd done.
Amazing. Wow, I love those stories.
Yeah, they're more of the seeing stories, you know. I think the more powerful ones, as your development sort of unfolds, you start to see synchronicities throughout, don't you? And your mind kind of gets blown in different kind of ways after that, you know.
For sure.
It's
so funny about your guide as well, because when I was first started, I decided to cheat the system and I paid for a spirit guide drawing. And in all the 12 years since, never once seen that guide, never once. And it just sits there in a frame looking at me like, you tried to cheat the system. So it's so funny. So what do you think? Here's a big question for you, Charlie. Why do you think we're here? What is the purpose of physical existence?
I think they're lessons. I'm a big believer of contracts, etc. I know that it sounds blasé, and you know, people will agree or disagree. It's not. I don't really need the discussion on it. Like, I'm firm in my mind.
Sorry.
You know, it's like it's just one of those. But I think things like, if I use my own example, I think things like my sister was exercised through free will prior to arriving. So I needed to learn a tremendous loss in the way that I had lost her. But I wholeheartedly believe that we had decided that before we came here to exercise that in some way. To give that some sort of context, so because everyone will go, well, of course you'll say that. My sister was 18 years old, I was 20 at the time, and the one night she wasn't at my mum's house, the one night in the 18 years, she died.
Yeah.
And I just don't think my mum would have survived, which is a silly thing to say now, because when my sister died, there was a massive part of my mum that died. She was, you know, she just lost the zest for life. So much so that this Christmas, just gone 4 weeks ago, was it? She fell like she just fell at home and sadly passed at Christmas. So again, it's one of those things. I just think the timing of the Christmas period. You've seen my diary, and it got to a Friday evening before Christmas, and I pressed like end. So bye everyone, see you in the new year, end, and my phone rang. As I pressed end, my stepdad, who has been a father throughout bringing me up, whatever, cardiac arrest.
Wow.
So I've got to go down to the hospital. So he was like my mum's main carer, and without him there, she was going downhill. So I'm doing 7-hour car journeys every day to clean up and buy and move and put her to bed. And, you know, it was an incredible taxing time. He gets out 2 days later, she dies. And I'm like, my God. And when it all finally settled down, so the funeral had been dealt with, my stepdad was out of ICU and HDU, and he had just got home, my diary reopened that day. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, so for me, I think they're learning curves. And I think it's always easier when you are not emotionally bound or in the moment to see that you are learning something. So at the moment you can be angry, upset, hurt, or whatever. With hindsight, looking back, you can see why they had to go, what relationships had to end, this had to happen, that had to happen, to maneuver through a contract that had been created in that sense. So yeah, I think they're lessons. I think it's to evolve who you are as a spirit, not as a human, as a spirit.
For sure.
And I think you recognize that subconsciously. I think you recognize someone's got depth to them. You know, there are young people on the planet, and you're like, oh, you are old. You are old. You just know it. And there are old people, and they're young. They're still stupid, and they still make mistakes, and and it's just like, oh well, you'll be back. You haven't learned. So it's kind of, I think that. I think you see that without recognizing age within a spirit of an individual. So
for sure.
lessons. They're lessons. They're perfecting who you are.
Yeah. Ouchie. And so what advice would you have for somebody that is just starting out with their mediumship and just taking those first tentative steps?
Do not Google.
Yeah, for sure.
And stay away from everyone else's journey. So do not read any books. I always get a lot of influx of, is there any recommended reading? I always recommend that students start their reading about 2 or 3 years into a development, because they have a foundational philosophy that they have discovered, not through my experience, but through their own experience, which isn't limiting the belief or the the imagination of the individual. So in my head now, anything is possible within mediumship. It's limited to my imagination. But if I read the books, it would maybe tell me that I can't do this, or maybe I'm not worthy enough, maybe I wasn't chosen, maybe I don't have the gene to be a medium.
For
So I
sure.
think recommended reading is no reading until you have a development or a relationship established with a guide or a team or an angel, whatever terminology they need there. Firstly, get that down. And focus on them, not on others. And I would use practice time very wisely, because we are really, really hungry early doors. We're really hungry, and we'll do 3 circles in a week, and we'll be on a weekend workshop, and we'll be doing an online seminar. And the mistake that I see constantly is people use that time, that practice time, to do the stuff they already know. And so you should be using that time, that practice, to fail, to get it wrong. Where did I go wrong? How did I go wrong? And learn from that, rather than going in and getting a name, getting an age, getting a relation, getting a passing, which they do week in, week out. And people have got this belief that practice makes perfect. Failing makes perfect, not practice.
Agreed.
Practice makes you better. No, understanding the subject makes you better. Practicing it doesn't. It's like I always say, I'm getting up in the morning and I practice dressing myself. I practice brushing my teeth. I'm not practicing those things. I have knowledge of them. And so therefore I just go and do them.
Yeah.
And mediumship, you need to understand and have knowledge of. So the practice is used in areas that you're weak at or could do with work on. So those that are just embarking now, find the niche that you're looking for, whether it be psychic, whether it be mediumship, spiritual, whatever, and then invest that time in failing in all those areas to acquire the knowledge to then move forward into their chosen niche. There's way too many people that want to do the art, the healing, the trance, the physical, the mediumship, the leaves, the ball, the stalls, the shop, the reads. And you're like, just pick one, get good at one.
Yeah.
Spend time in that area, and from there it will unfold. I never wanted to read. I wanted my sister.
Yeah.
That's why I done it. So I've never had a drive for a diary. I've never had a drive for it. I was looking for someone, and along the way I found all this other stuff. I never wanted to do stage. Never ever. The idea of standing up in front of people and talking to them is mortifying. It's terrifying.
Yeah.
It's horrible. But when I understood my subjects in the way that I understand my subjects, in the mechanics and the processes and what is achievable, people wanted a read. So I have a full diary. People want me on the stage for their venue or their centre, their churches, their, wherever it is. I have a full diary, not because I'm chasing it, but because they come and got me, because I understand my subjects. I never wanted to teach, but it was just a handful of people, early stages, year 2, year 3, year 4. Oh, you explain it really easily. You should run a class. Oh, okay. Well, I'll try. Let's see. I would be terrified to look at the numbers now that I'm doing. Like directly after this class, I have a full class to run.
Yeah.
So it's whether it be here. I'm not a big fan of this online stuff. I much prefer having you in my company. I do prefer it. But it does give me access because I'm halfway up the country and I wouldn't be speaking to you without it. So
yeah,
it would
it's
mean
funny,
hours
isn't it?
drive. And so there's a compromise, isn't there, in certain areas. So
For
so yeah,
sure.
it's I would spend time in one area and ignore everybody else. Find your answers for you. Challenge your idea, challenge your limitations on who and what you are. So, and I think that would serve them very well for a couple of years before they gained any kind of direction for themselves.
Amazing. That's such
Oh,
great advice. Thank you.
no worries.
Now I know that you've got a residential coming up
Yeah.
where you've got some spaces. So tell us about that. What's happening?
Well, I used to. I mean, there's a couple of schools in the UK, isn't there? You know, you've
Mhm.
got the world famous, is it? The world
Yeah.
famous Arthur Finley. And as much as I love the venue, it didn't really cater for who I am, you know. So
Mhm.
people love it, people hate it. You know, I get both sides. I understand it. And then I worked at one near you, actually, down in Kent. No, it wasn't Kent. It was Folkestone,
Yeah,
which
Kent.
was
Yep. Yep.
which was the Ersham Star School. I
Yeah.
worked there for quite a while. But our ideas kind of they went different ways. And, you know, things who I am and what I'm about kind of drew further apart from the idea of that. So it left me no choice but to run my own. And that's it's a black and white kind of, you know what you're signing up for. I'm going to work you really hard. You know, if there's any problem in mediumship, it's not the spirit world, it's not the communicator, it's not the client's fault
Mhm.
in that sense. So it's looking at where the problem is, which is you, the individual, and now
Mhm.
let's go and iron it out. Let's look at it, let's process it, let's deal with it, and then go from there. So it's kind of, that's what the residential is. It's just a full all round set of tools to get you through your read.
Amazing. And when's your next one?
Is that it? That it is the 13th to the 17th of August this year. That will be held
Amazing.
in Chester. The reason I had to go to Chester was out of respect for now, out of respect for the Kent school and for the Stansted school.
Yeah.
Um, that I will be moving them closer over time. But it's got an international airport at Manchester and Liverpool, which means the worldwide students can fly in. There is only 2 spaces left now.
Excellent.
The numbers are kept deliberately small, so I won't go over 30, which is still a big number, I appreciate, but it won't be 120. It won't be. It's very personalized in that sense that I do build a relationship with the students. So and mentoring, I do mentoring. There's only a couple of spaces left from July to December this year. That's online training though, so that's once a month, is that? Yeah, once a month. Yeah.
You're too busy to know where you are. I love it. It
Yeah.
makes me
It's
laugh.
I literally get up in the morning and say, "Where am I today?" And then I have to go and do
Well,
it.
time and space doesn't exist, so you're
That's
fine.
it. That's it.
Thank you so much. I
Thanks for
think I've
having
got
me.
neck ache from nodding all the way through that. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us and also your knowledge. And I know that you've got, I mean, when I talk about knowledge, there is like a library of information from Charlie on his YouTube. So I will put a link in the show notes to your website and everyone can check
Thank
you
you very
out.
much. Thank you.
Thank you for talking to us.
Thanks for having me.